Okay, let's do it again, and this time I want to show you a little different technology. So here's an example of a set of data. This one is for medical research, and they're studying the age of patients who had strokes caused by stress. You guys might relate to that with all the stress you're feeling from this class, but don't have a stroke or anything. And anyways, let's not think too much about what the numbers mean right now. Let's just look at the numbers. The ages of 34 patients are as follows. Construct a frequency distribution. They said use 8 class intervals, 8 classes. Begin with a lower class limit of 25. So let's see what that means is if we're going to already know that we're breaking up into 8 classes, and we can look for the high and look for the low. Let me do that really fast. All right, so I see that it's the high of 62 and the low of 27. So that's going to be 62 minus 27. A difference of 35, that's the range. Divide 35 by 8 classes, and you get 4.375. And normally, conventionally, 4.3 would round to 4. But remember, when we're finding the class width and constructing the frequency distribution, we round that up. So we're going to use a class width of 5. By the way, I didn't really just quickly see that there was a 27 and a 62. I used Excel. So again, if you didn't see this on the other video, I'm going to show it to you again really fast. I copied and pasted, or you can just type in the numbers. And this is right off the table that we had right here. Okay. Sorry. And then you select a row and you Control C or copy. And then when you paste it, you right click and paste it special. Paste it as a transposition. So transpose paste. And you can just do that with all of them. So copy and then right click or paste special, transpose paste. And I guess I'll do the last one since I'm already here. Okay, so how did I know quickly what the max and min were, which something is, oh, I wasn't all the way shifted over this time. Sorry, I missed these right here. Actually, I can just grab them really fast. Just paste them right there. Okay, so then once I had that, I just selected the whole thing. And I hit sort from smallest to largest. Now, if you hit sort, you might need to first choose custom sort or go into the data. You might need to say that you are not using a header, because sometimes that's already checked and then it won't sort right, to leave the first one where it was. So if you're not using a header, then you can say sort and then say okay. And that's how I got them sorted. Anyway, that's a pretty useful technique to be able to have. And the last time I did it, I actually drew the data right out of the image. I'm using OneNote. It's a Microsoft product. There's a lot of other tools like this. I like this one. And you can copy text from the picture, and then you can, go through, you can get it right off of the image. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill this out, and now we're going to have a class width of 5. And I'll just remind you on the last one, once you know the class width, and we determine that to be 5 from rounding up, remember, of the 4.3, then you can just find the first limit, and they asked us to use a lower class limit of 25, even though that is below our lowest number. But that's okay. You can make it below just because it works out nicer that way. And look at these numbers. So you just add 5 from one lower class limit to the next lower class limit all the way down. So this last lower class limit would be 60, and it would go, you can also add 5 all the way down there, or I can just add 4 here. And I know it seems weird that 60 to 64 doesn't have a difference of 4, but it doesn't have a difference of 5, but you got to remember that the endpoints are inclusive, so it's not supposed to have a difference of 5, it's supposed to have the difference of 4, because the endpoint would be included. Okay, let me get the intervals listed here. I mean, sorry, that was the intervals. Let me get the frequencies. All right, that took a bit, but so those are the frequencies I got. Now, what are we going to do with that? Because that's all they asked us for in this actual problem. Now I want to use the calculator to show you how to find the histogram that would go with something like this. Okay, and I've actually already opened a few pages here. First of all, you should know that in the Tools for Success, I have posted for you a graphing calculator tutorial for statistics. And what it is unfortunately, it's kind of limited. It's the TI-84, TI-83, TI-84 Plus, anyways, and all the different versions of those calculators, but you've probably seen it before. This is the silver edition. And but it shows, even though it's limited to that one, it shows a lot of detail, which can be generalized to some of the other Texas Instrument calculators and to some other calculators out there. Okay, so, but I'm not going to do their example, but I would go in there, and when you first open it up, I'll hide everything. It just shows that you can select a topic, but you'd want to select describing, exploring, comparing data. And I'm sorry, I guess, let's see here. That should be data is the plural. Data is the singular. Anyway, spelt the same. So data, make a histogram, and it goes through the example. They're very quick steps, and as you go through it, it feels like you're using the calculator, like as if you're pushing these buttons, even though you're not really pushing any buttons. It's just animated to feel like you are. And there's actually some shortcuts in some of the cases where you wouldn't even push all these buttons. But I'm going to use my emulator here. And I know you can't see the entire screen. It's a TI-83 emulator for I actually have a lot of old calculators we had on campus that were broken. And you can get this emulator for yourself. I think I pointed it out somewhere on Google. And then as long as you have your own ROM or the memory behind the calculator, then you can download it and use it. So actually, I have some ROMs. If you have a silver link that I could let you use that have cracked screens, and that's what this is good for. It takes a dead calculator and resurrects it onto your computer, kind of like Tron or something like that. All right, so I actually put in all the data already, so I want to show you what that would look like first. So I go under Stat, and right here, number 1, or hit Enter, I have a list of data. Or I should say data again. And you go down and you can see there's an empty entry on row 35. In other words, row 34 was the last entry. So I've got all 34 pieces of data. I actually have them sorted. I put them in sorted, but that wasn't necessary. From here, we hit second mode. You don't really have to do that, but that just takes you back to the home screen. Anytime you want to get these yellow commands, you just hit second, and it's like holding shift for getting capital letters or for getting dollar signs or whatever on your keypad. So that will give you all those commands. You were going to go to y equals, and I've already got a function in there, which is not good. So I'll go ahead and go over here and I'll turn it off. If it's black, it's going to be X'd out, not used. Or I can just go to the right of the equal sign, which is what the tutorial tells you, and just hit clear. You can, if you're not using it, just clear it. But if you wanted to keep it for something later, you can leave it there. Okay, then you can see that this plot is on. Anytime I hit enter when it's selected, it'll either turn it off, or enter when it's selected, will turn it on. It's a toggle. So I'll hit second y equals, which will give me stat plot. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on number 1, or type number 1. It's already on because I already turned it on. And then I'm going to go over to different types. So here's a scatter plot. I know you guys are doing that also. Here's a frequency polygon, but this is the one we want, a histogram. And then there's the box, the modified box plot. There's the box plot, and then there's an ogive. I'm going to come down to my list. I've already got the list in there, but if I didn't, I would go ahead and hit second 1, which would give me L1. The reason why this has an A in it is because it's got the alpha lock on right now, in case I need to use that. And then my frequency, I haven't yet put a frequency distribution in there, so I'm just going to say this is the full set, no change, it's a single set. So the 1 will stand for the single set. Okay, that's all done, and I can hit graph, but if I hit graph, this may not come up unless I already put it in the stat plot. So I'm going to go ahead and hit zoom and show you that you can go down to number 9, zoom stat, or just push the number 9. Once you get familiar with it, just start hitting the numbers. And there it is. So it plotted it. And you can see it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it comes down to 3, then up to 5 or 6, then down to 2, up to 5, down to 1. That is pretty darn close, actually. Interesting. Let's scoot this over. Yeah, definitely not our graph, though. So think about why that is. How do you know it's not ours? Well, look, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This only has 7 intervals, and we chose to use 8 classes, 8 class intervals. So, but it still gives you about the same distribution, right? In fact, you can kind of see it's not bell-shaped, kind of some skew there, but it's more uniform than anything else. In fact, let's go ahead and now graph, and I won't show you all the details. I'll go ahead and put in to 2 different lists, and I'll highlight as I go. Get the midpoints. Remember, that's the middle of each class interval, so you can just find the average by adding together the lower and upper class limit of one interval and dividing it by 2. 27. And once you have one of those, just add your class width all the way down. So the next one's going to be 32, and so on. I'll put that in one list, and then I'll take the frequencies and put them in a second list. So this will allow the calculator to act like there's 3 number 27s and 3 number 32s and so on, even though that's not really the case. But remember, because the frequency distribution process summarizes the data, we no longer know if there was ever an actual number 27. I mean, yeah, realistically, we can look at the data because it's still here on the screen, but imagine a fire burnt all your original data and all you were left with was histograms, or sorry, all you were left with was frequency distributions. Then you wouldn't know the original data anymore because the frequency distribution hides that kind of information, unfortunately. When I look at this list, I don't know if there was ever an actual 31. In fact, look at my list. There wasn't a 31. I just know that there were 3 numbers that occurred in that interval. All right, so let me get those lists in. I'm going to start them next to my original list of data that was sorted. I just want to leave it there for comparison. Okay, so I know that I have all the midpoints listed here because the last one I listed was the 8th one, and I can double check they're all 5 apart, and I started with 27. You can't see it though. Started with 27. All right, and then next to that, I'm going to list all the frequencies. You know what those are, 3 and so on. Okay, then I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go stat, edit. I'm sorry, that's already where I was. I'm going to go to second y equals, which will give me the stat plots, and choose number 1. Head on over here to the histogram, which is already selected. Now list 1 is no longer where my midpoints are, so I'm going to have to choose second number 2, which will just give me list 2, or I can actually type in with the alpha keys L2. And then I'm going to type in, this time I'll actually type it in L2. Sorry, L, hit alpha again, 2. Oh, but I'm crazy. I don't want L2 there, I want L3. So the X list will be the midpoint list. We call them X. We just call just about everything X to generalize. And then the frequency list was L3. Okay, and I think I don't have to change anything. Oh, I am. Hold on. Because this, I have to change the zoom plot again and double check if it was accepting the way I typed that in. No, it wasn't. It wasn't accepting it as the name. So let me just clear that and hit second 3. That's better. And see how it's a smaller 3 there? Okay, now I'll go straight to zoom, and I'll go to 9, which was the zoom stat. Gives us our statistically centered zoom. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa! I think they need to do that again. I'll do zoom standard first. Okay, then zoom stat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Huh. Alright, so I figured it out, and you should know how to troubleshoot this, but it's interesting why it did this. So double check that you have a bar with no gaps for each class interval. But I don't. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I should have 8 because I have 8 intervals. If you go under window, you can see where they're starting the minimum value. I'll actually go ahead and force it to start the minimum value at 25, even though, again, we never had a 25 in the data. 27 was the smallest, so I could probably kept that at 27. And then our largest upper class limit was 64, but then if I would have added one more class width to that, it would have been 69. I'm going to go ahead and try 69. And then here's the peculiar part. The X scale, that's basically the width that it's using, the class width. It somehow is calculating at 5.83333, and we know that it should be calculated at 5. So let me try 5 and see what we get here. So we'll go ahead and go to the graph now. And there we go. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they are matching. Let's slide this over a little bit here. Heights of 3, 3, 6, 4, 5, 3, 5, 5. If I would have changed my window and left it at 27, and the last one at 64, I want to see what that would have given me. Let's go ahead and make my Y scale a little bit lower, and right on 7 in terms of the height. So in that case, it cuts it off a little bit. So I'll go ahead and leave it at 69. Looks pretty good. So that's an alternate way. Remember, we had the distribution if I just went ahead and put in the raw data and then put in frequency of 1, and you can review all that. You can review everything that we did in the steps that are shown on that tutorial. So you really should check that out. All right.